Jasprit Bumrah is a good bowler. I mean, I don't think I'm breaking any incredible news here. I think we're all aware of it. And him dismissing Ollie Robinson, who's not an all-rounder. He's not really an all-rounder or adjacent. Ollie Robinson's just kind of sticky with the bat. It's not a huge news story. But there's something happened when Jasprit Bumrah dismissed Ollie Robinson, and I think it's worth looking at. Weirdly, Ollie Robinson did make a first-class 100 in his first innings. I mean, he hasn't made any more since. But he's mostly just a bloke who sticks around. That's kind of his thing. And it was the sticking around that was a big problem for India at Lords, because Ollie Robinson was sticking around so much that it looked like England might draw that test match. I mean, Robinson batted for over an hour, when most of England's top order couldn't really manage that combined. But I think in this particular case, what Bumrah did is more interesting than whom he did it to. And I'm talking about the dismissal that basically allowed India to win that test. This is Dan Norcross talking about what he thought of the Jasprit Bumrah dismissal in that game. Now, Dan is at one end, and at the other end is Mike Selvey, with very much the most basic description of that. I think somewhere in the middle, there's a very interesting story on what Jasprit Bumrah actually did to get rid of Ollie Robinson. And it is more than bowler bowls offcutter, even if, it may not be Game of Thrones. And I can completely understand Mike Selvey's tweet. But to view this ball in isolation, or to pretend that there wasn't a lot that actually happened around it, I think is wrong. This ball does have a narrative. I mean, it was just an off-cutter, but it was just a majestic off-cutter. But let's start with Jasprit Bumrah, because there's a few reasons why Bumrah is just a fantastic bowler. He only bowls at 85 miles an hour. He's not legitimately quick compared to some of the other bowlers around the world at the moment. And yet, he's always rushing batters. There is a reason for this. Jasprit Bumrah has shortened the cricket pitch. People used to shorten the cricket pitch all the time. This was a genuine cricket tactic, especially in the 1950s. It's not really something that happens anymore, or at least we haven't noticed anyone else doing it. Why it used to happen is because we used to have the back foot no ball law, which allowed bowlers to drag their foot, allowing them to deliver from much closer than, batters would have wanted. They got rid of the back foot no ball law, even though it is vastly superior to the front foot no ball law. And it completely changed cricket forever. And there's probably a bunch of bowlers around the world who want to do a class action suit with everything that front foot no balls have actually done to their body. Might be able to take that up with the MCC. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how these things work. But I know that the front foot no ball law is certainly a lot harder on the body than the back foot no ball law. But bowlers don't shorten the pitch anymore. Until, Jasprit Bumrah. Because of his action, he's just delivering from closer than other bowlers. It's a remarkable quirk, probably that came purely accidentally, but what an advantage he has over most players. He's basically invented his own cricket pitches. But while that explains some of the success, it doesn't explain all of it. He also has a short run-up. Now, this might not sound that important, but international batters are trying to get as much information as they can as the bowler is running in. The less time you give them, the more it's in favour of the bowler. This is because it's basically impossible to consistently hit a ball over 80 miles an hour. Batters do far better against bowlers bowling over 80 miles an hour than they do against bowling machines bowling at over 80 miles an hour. And that's because there's nothing to see with the bowling machine. The ball just comes out at 80 miles an hour, where they're actually reading the bowler and the field and the pitch and everything that's gone before them when they're facing a professional bowler at that speed. The more information a batter can subconsciously take from a bowler's run-up, the better. The shorter the run-up, my guess is, the less information. And I think the last bit is just the whippy action. There is just something kind of odd about the way that he delivers the ball. It doesn't quite feel like other bowlers. When you faced a lot of him, I'm sure it gets a little bit easier. But if you had the option, you'd always rather face a bowler like Chris Wokes, because he has a standard run-up. He gives you a sight of the ball and he delivers with a normal action. Bumrah just makes it all a little bit more different. It's just slight advantages, but everything's in his favour. Bumrah just has a lot of tricks. Some trolls, and I hope they're trolls for their own sake, sometimes suggest that Bumrah is much better with their white ball for Mumbai than he is with the red ball for India. I mean, that's just fundamentally in no way sound or correct. What he hasn't done for India is take big bags of wickets. That's probably because the Indian bowling attack's been so good for the time he's been doing it, but he's just chipped in a lot and he's taken a lot of wickets. If you go purely by average alone, and it's unfair, especially at this part of his career, but hey, we're doing it because we are. He's by far the most successful Indian pace bowler of all time in Test cricket. And there are reasons for this. He has played less at home than some of the other bowlers. In fact, he only just turned up for an Indian Test recently. But he is just an incredible Test match bowler. But I do believe he was a good white ball bowler before he became a good red ball bowler. And he's not the first guy to do this. Jimmy Anderson was a much better white ball bowler early in his career, and then he became a very good red ball bowler. And I think as a general rule, we're actually seeing the transference of white ball skills to red ball bowling. Bowlers are more accurate now because they kind of have to be to get big paydays in T20 league. Bowlers have to have a lot more skills now. They can't just run up and hit the seam. They need to do all sorts of fancy things, which sometimes bleed over into red ball cricket. And sometimes they're just using normal white ball tricks, but in the red ball game. And if you don't believe me, ask Shaun Marsh. We've all seen that delivery to Shaun Marsh. Wow. Except for Shaun Marsh. He did not seem to see that delivery. But this is a proper slower ball coming from white ball cricket and being delivered in test match. And it's just perfectly executed. Look at the drop on the ball. It just kind of falls off a cliff here. There are so many revs on this ball. And look at the skill he has to land it pretty much exactly where he wanted it. To just drop right onto the crease line. It's an incredible delivery. And this is the thing with Jasprit Bumrah. He's not just fast, he's not just accurate, he's fast, accurate, and skillful. And it's that triumvirate which has made him very successful in white ball cricket and brilliant in red ball cricket. It's just clear that there's a lot of thinking in his bowling. And that leads us back to the Ollie Robinson delivery. There's something really specific about that delivery that I like, and it's the fact that he comes around the wicket. This is the theory I've been working on for quite a long time with women's cricket, where there's a lot of bowlers who bowl big hooping in-swingers. Anya Shrubsole, Megan Shute, Shikha Pandey, they just have this ability to really swing the ball back in. And most of the time they do it from over the wicket. I've been thinking for a while that these three women and a few other in-swinger bowlers could possibly come around the wicket, a bit like what off-spinners do, and create a better angle and keep LBW, caught behind, bowled, all sort of in play at all time. It's basically what left-arm seam bowlers are doing, but just from a really random wide angle. I think it would be brutal to play. Now, whether it will work, I don't know, because it'd be coming from so wide, whether they'd still be able to swing the ball at that point. That might be the problem. But I reckon one of them could work this out. But swing is different to seam, or in this case, cut. And that's what Bumrah did. He was bowling an off-cutter around the wicket. He was basically bowling off-spin at, 70, 75 miles an hour. If he gets purchase, that's not easy to play. But it's not just the angle, is it? It's the setup. I got all this footage from Cricket with Ash's Twitter, by the way, which is well worth heading over there. He does a lot of great videos like this. One of the things that Bumrah actually did here was soften up Ollie Robinson. And then when he does bowl the full balls, Robinson doesn't move at all. He just stays in that crease and drops the bat. But it's really clear that at this point, Bumrah has really anchored Robinson to the crease. Phase 2 is something else though. When Bumrah comes around the wicket, Robinson is thinking he's going to get a lot of bounces. He's going to get smashed. He's going to get bombed. A right arm seam bowler coming around the wicket to a tail ender is about as clear a message as you can send that you're about to, bounce the hell out of them. It's the international sign for bumpers. The interesting thing about this is a couple of days before, Bumrah had actually created an incident already by bouncing another tail ender, James Anderson. Some claimed he was trying to finish off what Michael Clarke once started. Others claimed that he was bowling intentional no balls so he could bowl more bounces than Anderson. Whatever's true with that, it doesn't really matter. At a certain level, what matters is that Robinson would have been thinking that. He would have been thinking, uh-oh, he's going to bounce me a lot here from an awkward angle. Robinson was probably expecting 2 deliveries. Teeth or toes. And the first ball from around the wicket is predictably the bouncer. Robinson was right. Everyone who was watching probably could have guessed that. And Robinson was probably more worried about the bouncer because he's more worried about his teeth than his toes, which is a normal thing. And he probably figured he could play the Yorker late if he had to by just staying in his crease. He faces another bouncer from Bumrah at this point, and now he's probably thinking, okay, that's 2 bouncers, the Yorker is probably coming now. But that's when Bumrah sort of shakes up the deck a little bit and tries something different. In no way was Robinson set up to play a length ball that was cutting. He was crease bound, waiting for something to come very fast and very full, and suddenly the ball went fullish, but on a different length, and then moved direction off the pitch. Probably one proper stride in, he would have had this covered, but he wasn't going to make that stride because Bumrah had anchored him to the crease. And that angle had completely messed up with his stance and probably a little bit his footwork anyway. Robinson was thinking about his teeth, not a delicate slower ball on a length that would get purchase and, go on to hit the stumps. That's another brilliant thing about this delivery. Not only did Bumrah completely deceive Ollie Robinson, but he still had to pitch it absolutely perfect. That's not as easy to do from around the wicket. He made it harder on himself and he still nailed the execution. There's the deception of the slow ball, there's the ability to pull it off, and then there's landing it on the exact spot you need. That is what Jasprit Bumrah has done here. He basically used a bunch of his different skills and all landed them together in one delivery. Robinson goes out, India win the test. But this was a properly disguised, around the wicket, off-spinning delivery, coming on the back of a great plan, perfectly executed. It was kind of a spinner and kind of fast. It was everything that Jasprit Bumrah is. A collection of all of his skills in like one over. There just aren't many bowlers like him in the world. Brains, brawn, skill, and just a little bit of art.